ここからは日本語でお話をさせていただきます。私ども、日本のカード会社の、JCB なんですが、このスライドにあります通り、企業が負担するポイントを、使って環境貢献する仕組みを、日本の政府に提案して運営をしております。でこのビジネスモデルが、成り立つためには日本特有の事情がありますのでご紹介をさせてもらいます。まず日本人っていうのは、まだお金を借りることにすごい罪悪感を感じております。ですからクレジットカードを使うと、抵抗がある方がまだたくさんいるという状況なんです。ただクレジットカードで、お支払いをすると、現金では得られないポイントがもらえるということで徐々にその意識が、変わってきているという状況です。皆さんびっくりすると思いますが、日本政府は、数十兆円の、借金があります。しかしながら日本人というのは6兆円の、貯蓄を持っておる民族ですので、貯めることが大好きな、人種だということです。で日本ではこのポイントがきっかけで、クレジットカードを、消極的に使うイメージから賢く使って貯めるというイメージに変わってきました。全く逆の姿になっているというのが今の現状です。で面白い例としまして、日本の方は他人の生産まで自分のクレジットカードでお支払いをして後からその他人から現金をもらってポイントを貯めると、そういう人も出てきている状態です。ここにいる皆さんも日本人というのは正直で公平な人種と思われているかもしれないんですが、実際のところ、日本人というのも変わりつつあるということです。日本人の行動というのもこういうポイントがきっかけで変わっているというのが今の状態で、このエコアクションポイントという部分は日本人の行動にとってはぴったりなシステムになっています。ポイントがどんどんたまると必然的に環境に貢献をする、さらに企業が増えて使えば使うほど確実に CO2 が削減するという仕組みが日本では出来上がっているということです。ぜひ皆さんの国、ここ香港でもこういったスキームが導入できるんであればぜひ教えていただきたいというふうに思っています。
I think what's interesting about this, and if everything is not quite clear enough, we can ask more questions of our two friends later on. So this seems to me to be a government promoted scheme. It's done with the help of obviously commercial companies. It seems to tap into the culture of buying things. And I guess if we're going to have top runner schemes and other schemes, you do want people to buy these or exchange, right? Buy, replace the older, less environmental products with those of higher performance. So you have the subsidies. And now you have a new idea, which is that as people use their credit card, right, to purchase these products, that if they purchase certain types of products or services that are more eco-friendly, you allow them to store points, and these points can be used for further purchase, and that you find that this is very successful in Japan because the Japanese, you were saying, like to buy things, but they feel quite guilty at the same time. So they like to buy things, they feel guilty spending money, they like to save. So how about a scheme that allows you to buy and save at the same time? Is that about right? And can I just ask one point of clarification? This scheme is already running in Japan.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And it's quite successful.
A little. That's because, of course, as I explained, subsidy is already moving. So some people confusing subsidy and new scheme. So now we are make many promotion. And also, some people, of course, nowadays, 0.5 million people already participate in this system. But still, this system should make big success. More than 1 million people should participate. So it is now first step introducing.
Okay, so 500,000
yeah.
people are participating in this.
Oh, yes.
Okay, we'll come back and discuss this, and we can see whether people in different parts of the world and in Hong Kong, whether we like this sort of thing, and if we had something like this, is it going to change our behavior? But before that, if I can turn to the artists and cultural presenters here. We have Olaf, who's from Denmark. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what you do and how you think creativity is really changing how you do your work and how you think that is having an impact in the communities where you have worked. We have Lo Gunteng, who is famous in Hong Kong for having changed his lifestyle, and he's doing something perhaps different from in the earlier parts of your life. So I think we're very interested to hear, what is it that propelled you to change your own lifestyle? And actually Lo Gunteng is a fantastic public educationalist now, because he's going to schools, he's going to community groups to really talk about the environment, and of course he has written this song, Yiling Ngling, and as well performed a concert with this song and many other artists in Hong Kong. And then David Buckland, feel free to say something too later on. But Olaf.
Yes, thank you very much, Christine. I've been co-founding an initiative called Culture Futures. And the idea behind that is really that cultural actors, and when I say cultural actors, it's artists, but it's also designers who can design such systems in Japan, or it can be media people, you know, working filmmakers. It is explorers. It is any kind of creative action in what in a wide sense is called the creative sector, is really key to accelerating the transition to an ecological age. And we're talking about 40 years or something like that where we have to do that. And you may, the idea is that the cultural sector and all these actors should work hand in hand with business, with politicians, and those technology inventors who can provide the solutions also. Otherwise, we may be too slow. I agree very much with the question of time. Some of you may know the famous person Kuhn, who wrote the book about scientific discoveries. He said it takes a whole generation before a new idea is introduced. And well, we don't have a whole generation to introduce the ideas. We have a whole generation of 40 years to finalize them and implement them so they are there. So we have to do something new in humankind in terms of time. And how can we accelerate? We cannot use the normal political system because this will take time. We need to have some acceleration, and that is where cultural actors, in the broad sense of it, is key to be part of this solution so far. And that's why we have created this international coalition of large organizations worldwide working with culture to try to accelerate that agenda. And there's two reasons for it, really, which I want to point out here. The one is trust. Because citizens and consumers and decision makers, wherever, they want to trust what they have to go into. And if they have to do it faster than normally, they really have to trust it. Politicians may not be the best ones to lead that, because you know what is how that is viewed in many places locally. And not to say that they're not trustworthy, but that's just, I think, a fact of life, that you trust someone you know in your local community. You trust somebody you identify with, whether it's if you are a car fan, you trust as a person who is engaging in that because this is your interest, and so on and so on and so on. That is why people, filmmakers, famous ones, there are so much. There's so much reading about it in gossip magazines and so on. This is because of that. So if we don't get all those engaged in this, it would be much slower than otherwise. So the issue of trust is very important. So in a way, also to depoliticize this and make it. And then the second thing is, just 5 years ago, I would say that still the ecological agenda was seen as a bit about skepticism. That there was sort of a one-way solution. You have to be a vegetarian or something like that. But that's not how the ecological living is going to be. It's not going to be so boring. It's going to be fun, and there's going to be zillions of solutions for lifestyles, just as there is now. You can have a big fat car in the future, even a much better car than you have right now, when it's becoming electrical and when the infrastructure gets in place so we can drive on it. But the problem is with that, with the cars, for instance, that people, and I just saw a study made by anthropologists, studying what people believe in about electrical cars. Well, they do fear very much that the car cannot drive so long, which is, of course, an infrastructural issue. So in a way, they're right. But they also fear their freedom. I think that's more maybe a cultural issue, really, where what I'm saying could really play a big role. If you had some of the sports drivers say, it's another story, or some of the beautiful girls who are sitting models, making advertising, if they said something about this, maybe it could be part of changing general attitude, and you could make fun out of it. And there's so many ways where you're working with culture in partnership with business and with the political decision makers, we could make this accelerated, I think. So that is basically the idea. But the problem is that these kinds of solutions tend to be marginalized. They are not that interesting. They are also difficult because when you work with cultural actors, they all disagree. So you have to have a framework for it so that it is something where you can really move faster. So I mean, I could speak on and go on, but I just give you a few hints of why I think generally and why we have created this coalition, and hopefully we can accelerate. And I think these fantastic examples we're coming with here, because it's all stories which is about this same thing.
I just want to also explain to the audience here why Olaf is with us on this particular week in Hong Kong. He's here because alongside the C40 workshop, which starts tomorrow with the cities, he's here with a parallel workshop of cultural presenters who will spend 2 days talking about how they can work with city authorities, because city governments are becoming aware that somehow they need to find some way of working on these programs as well. And I think you can all agree that politicians are probably not the best people to think about this, but if they were open-minded enough to work with people in the cultural and the sports and in other sectors to see how to translate that essential message so that people become a part of just their own DNA. There's new DNA to bend the curve and whatever. So anyway, thank you very much for doing that workshop alongside the C40 conference.